Hello, boils and ghouls. My name is Ashley, and this week I watched the Barbie movie. Now, I don't know what I was expecting this movie to be, but having a car chase, a ghost, and Barbie in a full-on existential crisis wasn't it. Now, I, like most girls, grew up with a Barbie, a couple of Barbies. A couple of them were subjected to my sister. And they did not come out as weird Barbies. They were just limbless, headless Barbies. She was not a Barbie girl. But we did both have, and she liked, as far as I knew, the color change mermaid Barbie that you could take in the pool. We would bring those to our grandparents' house because they had a pool. And they had given her the coolest Barbie thing I think I've ever seen in my life. It was a boat with a working blender on it. We would float that around our grandparents' pool and make like chocolate milk in it. That was the coolest Barbie thing that I've ever seen in person in my life. I always liked the Barbie clothes. I always thought they were fun. My grandparents for Christmas one year gave me the entire Fashion Avenue collection. So I was very excited to see how they did the costumes for this movie, especially, Barbies. And they did a really wonderful job. All of the iconic classic Barbie outfits, like the pink gingham checkered thing with the heart shape. I mean, it can't be difficult to replicate Barbie clothes because it's just like regular clothes sized down. So unless they like really screwed it up, I didn't think they could like really do it the wrong way. But yeah, Barbie Land I think was done really well. It's a lot of pink, but it's Barbie, so of course there's going to be a lot of pink. And don't let my appearance today fool you. I am not a pink person. I own 2 pink pieces of clothing, this being one of them, and this lip color, this like Barbie pink lip color. I got it years ago. This is the first time I've ever worn it. Don't ask me why I own it. I don't know. I have another brand of lipstick in a very similar shade that I've also never worn. Why do I do that? I don't know. But as somebody who had Barbies and a Barbie dream house, that is exactly what I would imagine a world that the Barbies live in would look like. I love that they didn't try to make the dream houses look like real houses with walls and stuff. It's not like they're living, I don't want to say it's not like they're living real lives, but I guess they're not. They're not living real lives because they don't really do anything. Like even the Barbie, the Kens are useless. The Kens do literally nothing. I was surprised, honestly. I think Margot Robbie was the perfect choice to play stereotypical Barbie, right? Original Barbie. And I love that the narrator, Helen Mirren, will point out that you're watching Margot Robbie play a character, especially when she's freaking out about how she's not pretty anymore. And you really shouldn't cast Margot Robbie if you're trying to make that message. She's right. And I'm glad the movie is self-aware in that way, that doesn't matter if she's ugly crying, she's still pretty because she's Margot Robbie. Yeah, I think the casting of Margot Robbie to play Barbie was fantastic. I can't think of anyone else who would be just as good or better in that role. Not even just how she looks, but she portrays the character very well. And it was nice seeing all of the other Barbies throughout the years, even discontinued Barbies, except for maybe Midge. Now, I could have lived without Midge. I like that Midge was included because she is part of the Barbie legacy. But it was a little weird to have a pregnant Barbie for children to play with. Now, Ryan Gosling is Ken. I always enjoy Ryan Gosling movies. Now, I've been watching him on TV since Breaker High and Mickey Mouse Club, and his portrayal of Ken, I've never really given any thought to Ken, which I think is kind of the point of the Ken character in this movie. I think he does it very well. I never imagined Ken to be so clueless, but like I said, I don't think I really gave Ken much thought at all. I think I had a Ken doll maybe once. I know a lot of girls just played with their brother's G.I. Joe, or even if they had a Ken doll, they married their Barbie off to their brother's G.I. Joe. I have a vague memory of there once being a boy doll that I played with my Barbie. Was it Ken? I'm assuming. So maybe that's why the Kens are just sort of there. Maybe that's why they're like clueless and don't really know what to do with themselves. And maybe that's why they don't have jobs the way the Barbies have jobs. I mean, the Barbies don't even know where the Kens live. I always assumed, now let me know if you thought this too, or I just made this up in my head. I always thought Ken lived in the Malibu beach house. You know, there was Barbie's dream house and then the Malibu beach house. She lives in the dream house. Ken lives in the beach house, especially since this movie is saying that his job is beach, which I did not know until I watched this movie, that his job is beach. So wouldn't it make sense for him to live in the Malibu beach house? Maybe all the Kens could just live in the Malibu house? Or did they, like, you know, bury themselves in the sand like turtles at night? I think it's funny how Barbie and Ken kind of acknowledge that they're in a relationship, and she clearly wants nothing to do with it, yet both of them don't understand the dynamics of a relationship because they're dolls, but refer to each other as their long-term, long-distance, low-commitment girlfriend, boyfriend. Is that how they say it? I should have wrote it down. Now, if that's how you're defining your relationship, if that is the title of your relationship, don't bother. Ken needs to cut his losses, even though, like, it's Barbie land. What else are you gonna do? And it seems like every Ken is, like, assigned to a Barbie. Like, every Ken has their own Barbie. But he's kind of in competition with another Ken. Unless his Barbie is now Weird Barbie. I don't know. But she hangs out with the discontinued Barbies and the weird Kens. The discontinued Kens. Like Magician Ken. Anyway, there is a doll in this movie I have never heard of in my life, and that is Alan. I do not remember Ken ever having a friend named Alan, but like I said, I really didn't give Ken any attention whatsoever. I'm sure there's also a bunch of Barbies I'm unfamiliar with. I'm glad they included him, and honestly, I think he's the better doll. He's better than Ken, especially in that scene where the Kens are trying to build a wall and they're doing it wrong. Because of course they are. And Alan just gets out of the car and gets in a fight with them and just whoops them on. Like, this doll's got kung fu action. He's way better than Ken. This dude's halfway to a G.I. Joe. But poor Alan just wants to get out of Barbie land, and I don't blame him. Barbie land seems like a lot. And it just looks very uncomfortable with all of its hard plastic and its showers with no water, which I love that, by the way. I love that they kept the dream houses true to the dream houses, where you turn the shower on and you hear the water noise, but there is no water. And Barbie drinks some milk, but there's no milk in the carton. Although I will say, I kind of wish, like, at least when she's in Barbie land, she moved a little bit more like a doll. Not so much walking, because that would be, like, weird and I'm sure uncomfortable to do and awkward to watch. But the hands, at least, I think, should have been more doll-like. There was too much dexterity in the fingers. Like, instead of picking a cup up like this, maybe they could have held it like this, you know? Like you see Barbie do in the commercials. At least until she gets to the real world. Then when they get to the real world, they can use their hands like normal people. Speaking of the real world, as I mentioned prior, Barbie goes into a full existential crisis breakdown because she has irrepressible thoughts of death. And God forbid, cellulite. It ain't that bad, Barbie, okay? But I understand why any Barbie, especially stereotypical Barbie, would freak out a little bit over stuff like that. First of all, they're dolls, so not supposed to be thinking of that, and I don't think that they can die, which I have some questions about the existence of the Barbies in Barbie land. Let me address that real quick. Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. The casting overall for this movie was on point. I love when she plays a weird character because she does it amazingly. I can't think of anybody else I would ever cast to play a slightly odd, strange, weird character and not have it be Kate McKinnon. But her existence as Weird Barbie with the marker on her face and the chopped up hair and everything had me thinking about the Barbies that exist in Barbie land. Is there like one weird Barbie to represent all of the weird Barbies? Like the Barbies who have had limbs removed or their heads removed, or the ones that get thrown away. What happens to the Barbies that get thrown away? Did they disappear from Barbie? Like, is like stereotypical Barbie in Barbie Land the representative of all stereotypical Barbies in the real world? And if so, why is she only now having a freak out? Because you know there had to be other kids or people or whoever playing with a stereotypical Barbie that were maybe going through some stuff. So are there like multiple of these Barbies, or is she the only one and she is like the Barbie Land representative for all of them? Like, is there one Barbie, one Skipper, one Midge, one Weird Barbie? Like, does Weird Barbie represent all of the mangled and thrown away Barbies? And if not, do those Barbies just disappear? Is that how a Barbie dies? These are unnecessary questions that probably don't need to be asked. I'm looking too much into a movie about dolls and patriarchy, because that's what it is. This movie is about dolls and patriarchy and gender equality. The other Barbies, when they figure out something is wrong with stereotypical Barbie because she's walking around on flat feet, they tell her, well, you need to go see Weird Barbie and figure this out. And she gets told, well, you got one choice. I'm giving you the illusion of two choices, but really you only got the one choice. You got to go to the real world, find out who's playing with your doll and screwing you all up. And really, like, if being played with can affect a Barbie in Barbie Land, all of those Barbies should be pretty messed up most of the time. Just knowing how kids play with dolls. Like, I had a Dorothy doll that I would put in the sink and she'd be like swimming or taking a bath or something. I was like 5 and I should not have had those really nice Wizard of Oz dolls. I don't know whose genius idea it was to give me them, but they didn't fare well by the end of it. Just knowing how I played with her at 5 tells me that all of those Barbies in Barbie Land should be a little bit kind of sort of messed up. And Dr. Barbie kind of says it. You know, she knows to go to Weird Barbie. And it kind of makes it sound like most of the Barbies have gone to visit her at some point. Maybe they have. OG Barbie has to schlep up what looks like 10,000 stairs to get there. Complaining about how if her feet were really shaped like this, she would never wear heels in her life. Yeah, you would, because they're cute. Because we all do. So, in an attempt to correct herself, she goes on this very long trip to the real world with Stowaway Ken. Because he needs to be involved. Because he doesn't exist as a person or entity outside of Barbie. So he hides in her car. And I like the way that they get there. It's fun. You see all the different modes of transportation that Barbie has had throughout the years, right? A snowmobile, a boat, the rollerblades. And then they get here to the real world, and Barbie is immediately uncomfy, as she should be. Not only is she dressed like she just skated her way out of the 80s, she's also very pretty. But she catches on very quickly, and slightly behind her is Ken, that things here are not what she expected them to be, because the Barbies are real out of touch. They think that this world is like Barbie Land. That the existence of Barbies here, and Barbies with all of these different jobs, have empowered girls to become leaders here. Because at some point that started being the point of Barbie, right? Mattel started marketing her as, look what you can be, right? It's they had Barbie be an astronaut, a doctor, a writer, a lawyer, a vet, airplane pilot, whatever else. There's too many things to list, as a way to show girls that you can be more than just whatever society thinks you should be at that time. Which, great concept. Did it work? No. Maybe for some people, but it didn't for me. But Barbie, every Barbie, thinks they succeeded, right? She flat out says, no, we fixed gender inequality, right? They see a billboard for Miss Universe or something, and they think it's the Supreme Court, because that's what the Supreme Court looks like in Barbie Land. But it's literally the opposite. It's very far from being the Supreme Court. She finds the person she thinks is the one playing with her, this girl named Sasha. The mom, by the way, is Gloria, played by America Ferrera. I had to look up her character's name because I couldn't remember it from the movie. I'm not sure if anybody even ever says it. But this kid flat out tells Barbie, nobody likes you, except for her one friend that likes Barbie. And Sasha's not wrong. Was Barbie my favorite toy to play with as a kid? No. No, I was also reading Nancy Drew books. Okay? And watching Tales from the Crypt. I would often have, like, unsolved mysteries on the TV and playing with my Barbie. But Barbie wasn't the first toy I would, like, reach to play with. As Sasha says, you perpetuate materialism, which, like I said, I had the entire Barbie Fifth Avenue collection. At least I think I mentioned that. But my grandfather worked in fashion, so, like, was I surprised that's what I got for Christmas? No. But it was the whole thing. It was all of the clothes, a rolling travel suitcase to keep all of the shit in. And I didn't even play with it that much. Mermaid Barbie got played with a lot because it's a mermaid, right? That's a cool fantasy creature and you can take her in the pool. Actual individual Barbie, like Sasha says, perpetrates materialism and capitalism and, you know, look at all of this stuff. Buy all of this stuff, which is honestly half the point of toys. They keep your kids entertained, but the companies also want you to buy the accessories. Buy more accessories, keep your kid more entertained. Give us more of your money. But she also tells her that Barbie perpetrates an unrealistic body standard, which again, accurate. I love that they're addressing the negatives of Barbie and not just kind of like painting Barbie as like this wonderful doll. And like I said, I don't really know what I expected this movie to be, but this wasn't it, you know? Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if this whole movie took place in Barbie Land. That, I think, maybe was what I was expecting. You know, a history of Barbie, maybe. You know? Maybe you see Ruth Handler, like, coming up with the idea of Barbie. Or something like that. But I like that that's not what they did. They made it very realistic. And I think if the Barbies did live somewhere, like a Barbie Land, that maybe they would think they were doing good. And helping girls, because that's what they want to do, or maybe that was their original intention. But I grew up not looking like Barbie. Hell, even Barbara Handler doesn't look like Barbie. Even Rhea Perlman playing Ruth Handler said, I didn't look like Barbie. Nobody looks like Barbie. She flat out says it. Nobody looks like Barbie. And I grew up in the 90s. I didn't look like anybody. I didn't look like Barbie. I didn't look like the girls on TV. I didn't look like the other girls in school. Like, the way I look to you now is how I've looked my entire life. The opposite of Barbie, unlike my sister who looked like a Skipper doll. So Barbie, thinking that you can relate to her and her 10,000 careers, didn't translate well to me. Because to me, Barbie was just a doll. She was just something to play with, to not be bored. I didn't see myself in Barbie. She wasn't encouraging me to be anything, especially since I didn't have any career Barbies. I didn't even have teacher Barbie. I had a mermaid, and I had one full of clothes. Maybe that was fashion designer Barbie? Was Fifth Avenue Barbie fashion designer Barbie? If that's the case, then I did have a career Barbie. I do sew things. I'm not a fashion designer. But I do sew things. But that's not because of Barbie. It's absolutely not because of Barbie. My Barbies were not making clothes. My Barbies were just wearing clothes. Sasha's statement to Barbie, I think, is very accurate for a lot of people, myself included. You're not really perpetrating the most positive things. You're just a doll that people played with. And then you have her mom, who is going through a crisis, which is why Barbie's going through a crisis, because she's the one actually playing with her. And she is designing irrepressible thoughts of death Barbie and cellulite Barbie, and those Barbies are cool. Well, maybe not. Nobody wants cellulite, okay? Nobody wants it. You just accept that you have it, because now you have it, and good luck getting rid of it. I would be interested in an irrepressible thoughts of death Barbie. My nephew maybe too, because he really has, like, he just turned 18. And he thinks he's got one foot in the grave already. There's a commercial in the movie for Depression Barbie. Can I have Depression Barbie? I want Depression Barbie. That's the first Barbie I felt like I've related to in my 37 years of life. But her idea of just a regular person Barbie, fantastic. Because that's kind of how I treated my Barbies. They were just normal, regular. Like, they were never anything special. They didn't do anything special. They didn't go to space or whatever. But the whole time Barbie's having this conversation with this kid, which, by the way, this school she attends has absolute garbage security. These two grown-ass people, dressed like they stepped out of the worst Western movie you've ever seen in your life, just walked right in and nobody said anything about it. Especially when one of them is approaching a kid. I was immediately concerned. I mean, Ken gets approached by a lady, a parent. I guess she just assumed he was also a parent. Like, nobody was concerned about these two clearly out of place people walking into a school. But okay. Barbie made the key mistake of leaving Ken alone in a library, which honestly, the Kens are not portrayed as the smartest beings in Barbie land. So it was nice to know he could read. And I guess Barbie figured, no harm can come from him just being in the library, right? No harm ever came from opening a book. Guess she's never seen The Mummy. And there he learns about the patriarchy and horses, because he's kind of caught on at this point that men seem to be in charge, and he likes that. And also briefly thinks horses are in charge because, you know, he's not the smartest doll in the box, you know. It's understandable, given the life that all of the Kens lead, for him to come to the real world and be like, oh, I could be like Barbie here? I could have things? I could have a dream house? Because he's very unaware of what it actually is and what it's actually like. He just wants to be in charge for a little bit. When he leaves the library, he sees Barbie leaving with the guys from Mattel. The FBI calls Mattel. How the FBI knows, don't ask me. But the FBI just knows things, okay? The FBI calls Mattel and says, hey, you have another situation. Your dolls are loose. Now, Mattel just looks like a miserable place to work. You know, it's very dark. I don't think there are any windows. Everybody is in their own little isolated cubicle. Maybe it's supposed to represent the mundane of corporate life or something. I don't know, but it looks awful and miserable. But you learn this is not the first time a doll has walked out of Barbie Land, or driven / snowmobiled / rollerbladed out of Barbie Land. Apparently Skipper has also made a visit. I would like to know what reason Skipper had for coming over here, especially since it resulted in her trying to take a toddler surfing. I'm very curious about Skipper's visit to the real world. Now, as I said, there's a ghost in this movie, and it is the ghost of Ruth Handler, who apparently keeps an apartment on the 17th floor. So the CEO of Mattel is just aware there's a haunting going on and nobody's worried about it. But I like that. I like that she was included because she is a founder of Mattel and the creator of Barbie. Mattel was founded by her husband and some dude named Matt. Her husband's name was Elliot. That's where Mattel comes from. It's Matt and Elliot. So I guess we really should be pronouncing it Mattel instead of Mattel. Regardless, she created Mattel, and like she said, did have issues with the SEC and the IRS and all kinds of things. But I've also recently learned that Barbie wasn't the only doll named after one of Ruth's kids, Barbara. Ken is also named after her son, Kenneth. Which I understand wanting to name dolls after each of your kids, but maybe the doll that's being marketed as Barbie's boyfriend shouldn't be named after Barbara's brother. It just seems kind of weird to me. I don't know. Is it just me? Am I the only one that thinks it's weird that Barbie and Ken are named after Barbara and Kenneth? The dolls are meant to be dating, but in real life they're brother and sister. It's weird to me. It's an interesting choice. That's all I'm saying. I mean, if you make a Barbie movie, you do have to include the creator of Barbie in some capacity. And Margot Robbie's Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, we really see her grow and develop as her own person throughout this movie. You know, she keeps saying she's not, you know, smart like the Dr. Barbie or astronaut Barbie or like win a Nobel Prize Barbie, but she is, because she'll just come out and say things that are smart and intelligent, and she doesn't really realize it until later on. And then she's like, oh yeah, I said that. She doesn't think she can do anything, that she doesn't do anything, and then figures out on her own that she is capable of everything, just like the other Barbies. And when she's taken to Mattel, they want to put her in a box. They want to put her back in her box, which I understand the appeal of that for a Barbie, you know? That's where you came from. It's familiar. But she's not so stupid that she's going to let them put her in the box. She just lets them think that they're going to put her in a box. Because she catches on real quick without really letting on that she is. She's just like, I'm just going to go fix my hair. And then she bolts. Which leads to that car chase that I mentioned. Because she gets outside and hops in the car with Gloria and Sasha. And she's like, we got to get back to Barbie Land. Where Ken has already returned. And honestly, I'm surprised he was able to find his way back by himself. But then again, maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. He's not super smart, you know? But I guess he can, I don't know. I was surprised he made it back in one piece and didn't get, like, abducted on his way back through Santa Monica or something. Eaten by those dolphins or whatever. But by the time Barbie and Friends comes back to Barbie Land, it is now I will not call it Kendom. Not. Kenland. And it's just, it's horses everywhere. So many horses. Even like the Barbie IP has a lot of horses. What is it with like Barbies and Kens and horses? Like I know there's like that Barbie horse girl movie. Maybe a game? Was that game Barbie? I don't know. Anyway, the poor susceptible Barbies in Barbie Land fall under the spell of patriarchy and they're brainwashed by the Kens because Ryan Gosling Ken is saying, hey no, look, a lady asked me what time it was. And they're all amazed because nobody does that. Nobody pays any attention to them. They don't have a good day unless their Barbie looks at them, which is really, really, really sad. These poor Kens really have nothing. And I think you're meant to empathize with Kens. Kens are the women of Barbie Land, right? Barbie Land is underneath a matriarchy, right? A female version of patriarchy, where the Barbies are in charge of everything and the Kens have nothing, and the Kens are actually probably worse off because they're dumb, like super dumb, and they don't know how to exist outside of Barbie and Ken. I mean, they even try to build a wall. That's when we see Kung Fu Alan, you know, but they're building it vertically. I feel like you could like grab a couple ladies from multiple points in history and tell them to build a wall across a road and they could figure it out just from having seen a wall before, or a fence. The Kens, well, they don't really even have walls, do they? They don't even really have walls in Barbie Land. So maybe they really just had no idea. Maybe they just didn't know what a wall looked like. So you don't feel bad for the Kens, but you kind of do. You sympathize with Ken, and that's why you see people walking around in the I am Kenough sweatshirts. Which I would like to have if it wasn't looking like rainbow sherbet, bright neon colors. But you kind of understand what the Kens are doing. They're going about it in a horrendous way. An awful, awful, terrible way. But they just want their moment. Just like ladies here want their moment. They want a chance, right? They want to be viewed as more than whatever the world tells them they should be or can be, whatever, right? Like the Kens aren't even told what they could be. Their job is beach, and apparently they don't have homes. That's pretty bad, right? The Barbies are their girlfriends, but they can't even just like sleep on their couch. It's messed up. So you do kind of end up feeling bad for the Kens once the Barbies are corrected and righted, which is only possible through the most honest and accurate monologue I've ever heard in my entire life by America Ferrera, and it was amazing. It's the most true thing I've ever heard in my life about all of the hypocrisy and the double standards and the expectations that are put upon girls and women on this planet. I hope people like have this as like a movie that they show that their kids when they're growing up, to be like, do you see how like it's not right to treat anybody this way? It's not right for the Kens to be treated that way. It's not right for girls to be treated that way. Here, it's not right for anybody to be treated that way. To be like, you can't be in whatever position you want, well, that you've earned, really. Like, I'm not gonna like walk into a hospital and demand to be a doctor like Ken did. No. Like, if you're qualified for something, then you have just as much right to do it as anybody else who's qualified for that position, right? But America Ferrera saves the day by explaining the way women have to be in the real world to the Barbies to snap them out of it so they can save Barbie Land from the Kens, which results in Ryan Gosling, Ken, telling Margot Robbie Barbie, running the patriarchy was hard. He didn't really want to do it, which, yeah. And he was just doing it in Barbie Land with a bunch of Kens, man. Love that he said, it's too much work, I'm not doing it. You can have it back. I don't want it. I guess he decided it was just easier to let Barbie take care of everything and he can just hang out at the beach. That's another thing that Barbies are obsessed with, beaches. Fucking hate beaches, man. It's another reason why I couldn't be a Barbie. I don't like the beach. Nothing about it. Anyway, this movie ends with Barbie coming to life and joining the real world. And she gets dropped off at the doctor by Gloria and Sasha, Sasha's dad. And, like, she calls herself Barbara Handler, which is technically her name. But I guess she got well, I guess adopted wouldn't be the right word. I guess she's just, like, living with Gloria's family now? Is that it? Has she become part of their family? And what is she doing? I want to know what Barbie is now doing with herself. Does she work at Mattel now? Because she really kind of can't work anywhere else. I mean, she's really come into her own and developed as her own person and realized she is smart. And as far as I'm concerned, every other Barbie that exists is an extension of her. Because she's the original Barbie. So anything they're capable of, she's capable of. But I guess she didn't see it that way. Anyway, that's it for this video. Subscribe if you want to, click the like button if you feel like it. If there's something you would like me to watch, please let me know in the comments down below. And I will see you guys next time. Be excellent to each other. Bye.